Howdy fam, I'm Brian Smith, and I'm very excited and very thankful that you decided to join me for the very first episode of Danger Fruit! Where to start? Ha! Easy! We're talking about Stagecoach. Stagecoach came out in 1939 and was directed by the legendary John Ford. It's a story about 9 strangers who get on a stage, and it takes them on literally and figuratively the ride of their lives. Straight from the jump, a cavalryman comes riding into camp to alert the rest of his company that Geronimo's escaped and the Apaches are on the warpath. Boom, snap to Tonto, Arizona territory. It's being revealed to us why 8 of our 9 riders are set to get on the stage. Some for good reason, some for bad reason, some for love. The stage's destination is Lordsburg, New Mexico, and if you're wondering where that is, it just so happens to be on the other side of Apache territory. And in the context of this story, that is not good news! This was the first time that Monument Valley was used as the setting of a movie. This is crazy because Monument Valley would very soon come to be an iconic Western setting for so many movies during the heyday of the Western. When this movie was made in 1939, it wouldn't be until 1949 that there would even be paved roads. The actors stayed at old CCC camps while they were shooting out in the valley. The cavalry, even after the marshal disagreed, is going to accompany the stage for a ways to make sure to try and keep them safe. But not long after, they split off, and it seems that only moments pass before the stage gets held up by a devilishly handsome stranger who just so happens to be the outlaw Ringo Kid. Ringo's on his way to Lordsburg seeking revenge, and after he and Marshal Curley cut a deal for his freedom once they reach their final destination, off we go. Nobody wanted this movie. A westerns weren't in vogue when this movie came out, and even John Wayne, all he was known for was his roles in B movies. In Spicy Take, wasn't blowing anybody's minds as an actor. This only got picked up by an independent company, and that was after a lot of tries, and even then, they wanted to ditch John Wayne and pull in Gary Cooper, which, you know, I'm not gonna argue with that. That's not a bad call. But John Ford was so adamant that they keep John Wayne that finally they settled on having Claire Trevor come in because they needed to bring some heat. They needed to balance out some star power. So who's joining us on this stage ride across the desert, you might be wondering? A lady of the night with a heart of gold, a pretentious woman of high society, a gentleman gambler, a rotten banker, a sheepish liquor peddler, a prideful marshal, a lovable stage driver, an alcoholic doctor, and a surprisingly humane outlaw. You sprinkle some garnish on that and dang, we've got a recipe for greatness. Orson Welles called this movie the perfect textbook of filmmaking. And he claimed to have watched this movie more than 40 times. In preparation for what? In preparation for what? In preparation for Citizen Kane. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you think we were watching just another run-of-the-mill Western movie? Yeah, not. This is the cream of the crop, y'all. Dang! First stop, everyone comes inside. There's a large table for them to sit at so they can have some food. And the separation between these people could not feel any bigger. Ringo and Dallas are practically banished by themselves to one end of the table while everybody else retreats to the other. And I love this moment though because of how much Ringo could give a rip about what's going on because of how locked in he is on Dallas. And she's not giving him the time of day, but he is not even phased. Right on. This is stop 2, and it's where Mrs. Mallory was expecting to meet up with her husband. No dice, Mrs. M. He's unfortunately in the military, and they have shipped out. This could not come at a less opportune time because Mrs. Mallory, she's preggo, and this might be the fine establishment that it seems her child is choosing to meet the world for the first time. Do we have a doctor in the house? Why, yes we do. He's the one that this entire movie has been trying to raid Mr. Peacock's liquor supply. So, Doc Boone realizes the responsibility that he has, and he slams some whiskey, slams some coffee, like a lot of coffee, and then lo and behold, makes a baby appear. I think this is wild. When this movie came out, in the era that it was made in, you could not explicitly say that someone was a prostitute. Was a what? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Even though it clearly is showing that someone is 100% a prostitute. You can't just say that out loud. Also, same rules apply for pregnancy. Mrs. Mallory is a woman in her condition. I mean, it's not even clear that she's pregnant until like, oh dang girl, are you having a baby? What kind of world did they live in? I mean, modest is hottest, don't get me wrong, but what was that about? Right on. So, we've been alerted, and here we find ourselves riding through Apache territory. This is a crew that maybe is 20-ish% useful if they were to meet any kind of trouble, and oh, does the trouble come to introduce itself. I've seen this movie before, and even still, I get tense every time it starts to hit the fan. I mean, once you consider especially the fact that there's a fresh human we just added to the mix, the stunts are great, the action is great. This always gets me so hyped. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. We finally make it to Lordsburg, and this is where Dallas is from, and she's ashamed. But Ringo is still on her hip, even as it's becoming more and more glaringly obvious the life that she had been leading up to this point in the movie. Now, Ringo needs to step away because he needs to go take care of the business that he came to Lordsburg for, but that's not without letting Dallas know he wants her to stay put in case that he comes back. The brothers that Ringo came to deal with in Lordsburg are alerted in the saloon that Ringo's there and it's pretty near time to go. As they're walking out, Doc Boone steps in front of them, half their size, half is sober, and still has the gall to step to these men before they're gonna go deal with an actually dangerous person. This is like icing on the cake of suspense because it stops everyone for a moment before we get to the thing that this entire trip has been leading up to. Doc Boone won an Oscar for his performance in this movie. Why? Because he crushed. Not only was he intoxicated 98 of the 99 minutes of runtime of this movie, but he also manages to be our moral compass and delivers a baby. What? Dang, look out fam, we in the Wild West now, okay? The brothers come walking out into the street. Ringo, outnumbered, comes walking out of the shadows and dives onto the ground, starts shooting. Snap to Dallas, shots ringing out in the background. My heart is racing. Sorry, her heart is racing. Did he win? Oh, is he lost? Put a mark in the win column because here comes Ringo in that sweet, sweet relief. But now Ringo needs to honor the deal that he made with the marshal. And there's a wagon waiting for him. And Dallas and Ringo go walking up to it, met by Marshal Curley and Doc Boone. Pleasantries are exchanged. And Ringo asks if maybe he and Dallas could just ride a little ways before Marshal has to take him in. Marshal shows him humanity, grants him his wish. Ringo reminds Dallas that he has land and that he wants her to go there and that he wants her to wait for him. And a tear runs down my cheek. Okay, I gotta read this one because it's pretty dense. Philosopher Robert B. Pippin has observed that both the collection of characters and their journey are archetypal rather than merely individual, of course, and that the film is a mythic representation of the American aspiration towards the form of politically meaningful equality, which I 100% saw too. In 1995, this film was deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant by the United States Library of Congress and selected for preservation in their National Film Registry. Oh boy, boy. Where do we even go from here? Now the marshal picks up a rock, starts tossing it, and all I'm thinking is, Marshal, don't play with me like that, man. He's got this look on his face like a granddad who knows he just got a killer gift for his grandkid. He takes that rock, he freaking hurls it at the horses to get them moving. He and Doc are hollering, and Ringo and Dallas ride off into the night, saved from the blessings of civilization. Then, Marshall turns to Doc, offers him a drink.
I'll buy you a drink.
Doc Boone replies,
Just one.
Moving on. Now we are into a section called The Good Fruit, The Bad Apples, and The Harvest. And what this is going to be is talking about what was positive about a movie, what was negative about a movie, and after the runtime, after season, what are we left with? The good fruit. This movie does not bring characters in that you aren't expecting. They're all people that you aren't shocked to see in a movie. A gambler, an outlaw, a marshal, a flipping stagecoach. Yeah, this all makes sense. The reason this movie gets such high praise is the fact that these are more complex characters than what you might see otherwise. I mean, some of them are fully formed humans. I mean, sweet babies. Is there nuance to an outlaw? Oh my gosh. What about his lady caller who generally, stereotypically works on the second story of saloons in most of these movies? Yes, she's a fully formed person. This is wild. What is happening? This was and is why this movie gets such high praise. I mean, I feel like they sat back, looked at the ceiling, and just... Okay. Let's talk about the bad apples. So in this movie and in a lot of movies from this time period, something that you might not be shocked to hear is about the element of racism and misrepresentation of a people group. And in this case, it's Native Americans. They're strictly seen as one-dimensional characters out to murder and strictly for violence. And unfortunately, not one of the Native American characters got a name or a character credit in this movie. I think something that we need to keep in mind, however, is that while we're watching a movie, in this case from the late 1930s, in the 21st century, it can be a bit jarring. It can be really cringy. That is evident and obvious, but I think also we need to keep in mind that we can't necessarily expect something like this from this era to show our values of today. The Harvest. This movie came out the same year that World War II started. However, I think it still has a voice in speaking to some things in present day and present times. Different people from different places and different walks of life all have to come together and deal. And then they do. They might not be graceful about it, but they show understanding and some compassion, a dash of a romance, and they really push through to make it to the other side of this really scary, really difficult time that they go through together. Howdy fam, we've made it to our final destination on our metaphorical danger fruit stagecoach, and I am so glad that you came along with me, and I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, it's custom in these parts. Throw up a thumbs up, and if you want to see more, definitely hit subscribe. This is only the first video, and there is more to come and more to see. So I highly recommend that you do that because it would mean a lot to me. I think it'd be great for you. And if you know someone who loves Westerns, if you know someone who just loves movies, we'll talk about Westerns. We'll also talk about movies that you didn't realize were Westerns. And then I'm gonna talk to you about how, yeah, they're totally Westerns. It's gonna be a good time. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, and we're having a lot of fun there too. And I just hope that we can keep talking about these movies together, that you can join the conversation, and that we can just keep having a good time.